Today, in this video, I'm answering all of your questions from Instagram. We're going to talk about mixing, lots of mixing. We're going to talk about gear. We're going to talk about acoustic treatment. We're going to talk about monetization on YouTube. We're going to talk about acoustic treatment. This is going to be a wild ride, and I've got a lot of questions. Let's get into it. Hey everyone, I'm Cole Caparoon. Thank you for stopping by for another video. Let's just jump right into it. I polled you guys on my Insta story. If you guys aren't following me on Instagram, be sure to follow me over there because that's where I always source these questions. I post behind the scenes. I've been posting daily updates of this. When I get new gear in before it ever hits YouTube, or a lot of it doesn't even ever hit YouTube, it always gets posted about on Instagram. Hit me up on Instagram, link in the description below. John the Funky Monk says, can we talk about snare reverb? What are you using, pre-delay, and type? Now, I'm a big fan of room reverb on snares. And for the longest time, I was using the Valhalla room reverb. And I have a couple presets that I've made myself that I like. But lately, I've been using the FabFilter Pro R. Their new reverb, it is unreal. It is such a good reverb. Now, what type and what my settings are depends on the song itself and the tempo of the song, how aggressive the song is. So for something slower, more ballady type, I'd want more like a as I just hit my hat. For a faster, like hard rock metal thing, I usually want more of a kong, kong, like something that has like a really fast decay and is really dense. I usually set the pre-delay just long enough to get out of the way of the snare. So somewhere, between I want it out of the way of the attack of the snare. So somewhere in the 70 to 100 milliseconds range, sometimes down as low as 50, sometimes up as much as 200. Kind of just depends. But that is, and as far as type, just a room reverb, and it's different for every single song. Ben Nattengore, I think I said your name right, says, what are your thoughts on producers, mix engineers taking royalty points on tracks? This is extremely common. It's been happening for decades and decades and decades. However, I don't take points on records. There's been a couple records that I've worked on that I probably should have taken points on because I would have made a lot more money off of it. But here's my general thought on whether or not you should take points on records. For those of you that don't know, it's percentage points. So I produce a song and I take, say, 6 points, 6% off the top of whatever the song makes. And then that's what I'm owed in addition to my flat rate. Now, sometimes producers and mixers will just take points. Sometimes they'll take a flat rate and points. Sometimes they'll just do a flat rate. I'm pretty much just a flat rate all the time. And it's because I don't like negotiating. I don't like contracts. I mean, you should use contracts, but I don't like complicated contracts. I don't like having to chase people down to get my money. And I just, most of the stuff, let's be honest, Spotify's paying people basically nothing. So if you didn't work on a song that's gotten tens of millions of streams and you didn't have 10 points or more on the record, it just, to me, is just not a meaningful enough difference financially to hassle with all of the nonsense that goes along with collecting points and collecting royalties on a song. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. You do you, but it is a big hassle. And the only time I think it makes sense is if you're working on music that's getting tens of millions of streams. And outside of that, kind of not worth it. How many videos on YouTube did you post before being monetized? Now, I have been uploading stuff on this YouTube channel for probably 10 years now. And I never got any traction with any of the earliest stuff. Some of them are still up. Some of them I've taken down because they're real bad. But it wasn't like this. I wasn't doing YouTube. It would be like a random guitar thing, or I was playing a solo on someone's record and I just threw my phone up and filmed it. Or I wasn't really trying to make YouTube videos because I didn't understand what that was, because I didn't ever watch YouTube. Believe it or not, until I started actually producing content for YouTube, I was not an avid YouTube watcher. I didn't really know who any YouTubers were. I didn't really know that you could just do this in a bunch of different genres. So once I started trying, once I was putting up videos and started trying, it happened really fast. And it's because I got lucky. I did that serious home studio, what you need in a serious home studio, going over my apartment bedroom studio. And that got 150 or 200,000 views really quickly, and that satisfied the hourly requirement for my monetization almost immediately. And then the subscriber count got there really quickly as well. So probably 15 or 20 videos went up on the channel before I got monetized, but once I started trying, like 5 or 6 videos, and then I was monetized. Not that that really means a lot, because honestly, you guys would probably be surprised at how little it actually means. Like right now, I only make about $1,500 a month off of this channel, off of the AdSense. Like when you clicked on this video and you had to watch the ad and then you skipped it, I only make about $1,500 a month off of that, and that's getting 400,000 views a month. So it's really not that much money, honestly. Not that $1,500 isn't a lot of money. I'm just saying that, like, it's not what people think it would be. I have no idea how to say this. Knittin' a run says, what's your best first hardware plugin to get on a budget? If you're in the UAD thing, or I think they offer it on Spark now. I think you can get this on Spark. I think the Universal Audio 1176s are just, they work on absolutely everything. Like literally everything. They sound good on everything. Get the classic 1176 bundle. It's great. And then the next one, which is a lot more expensive, is the Empirical Labs Arouser compressor plugin. To me, those are like, if you're looking for like more of a hardware emulation style plugin, those two are the two that I use the most often. Jackson Music 04 says, how do you create time for family, friends, and yourself? It can be tricky working in music. Poorly. That's how I do it. Very poorly. I'm getting better about it. The older I get and the more successful my career has become, the better I can be about it. But I was real bad about it for a long, long time. And it was really having a daughter that made me really start slowing down. But I will say that a lot of people are not very good managers of their time. And what I mean by that is, how do you extract the maximum amount of productive minutes throughout the day in order to get the maximum amount done? This is a thing that I focus on a lot. And in my mind, it drives my wife nuts. I'm constantly rearranging my schedule for the day based on how I think I can get more done in 8 hours. Like little stuff, like what is the ways that I can organize my tasks so there's the least amount of downtime between them. And I'm constantly doing this, constantly rearranging my day. If I have an errand to run, I will only do it at the beginning of the day or at the end of the day. I will never do it in the middle of the day. You know, if I've got to play guitar on 4 different songs and master a song and then have a vocal session, I will switch this all around, because mastering, I don't need to set up microphones, so I'll master at the beginning of the day, and then I will track guitars and then vocals, so that way it's the most efficient arc through my day. Just stuff like that is the best advice that I can give. Little stuff, and we're all guilty of this, but little stuff like, don't be scrolling on Instagram. Don't be watching YouTube videos unless you're actually taking a break. This is counterproductive because I want you to watch my videos, but if you're gonna go to lunch and you have a choice between a place that you're gonna go to that's 5 minutes away and a place you're gonna go to that's 20 minutes away, go to the place that's 5 minutes away. You know, just stuff like that really, really adds up. If you approach every day like this through the entire year, then you're ending up with entire days of time saved at the end of the year. And it can make a big difference if you do that every day. Steve Rivers Music asks, what's the insulation you're using on that back wall? That wall right there. It's 1.6 pound density NOF insulation. That is what was recommended to me by Gavin at Haverstick Designs. And so all the bass trapping is that same acoustic treatment. Stay tuned. This video is coming very soon. This room's going to be finished this week, and I'm so pumped about it. James M. Terry asks, how do you mix in headphones? Do you change your practice when not using speakers? The only things that I really use headphones for is an additional reference point. In the same way that I like to mix with multiple pairs of monitors for different perspectives, for me personally, headphones is just an additional perspective to make sure that the mix is translating across multiple systems. I don't really do anything special. I do still use the Focal Clear MG Pro, which is a very high-end, like $1,500 headphone, and they're really, really, really good. Sometimes I will use headphones to check reverbs and delay tails and stuff like that, just to try to eliminate the room reflections from that. But really, it's just an additional perspective. Addie Haley asks, how do you make low end more interesting, more movement? To me, this all comes down to the production phase. If it is boring when you start mixing it, it's still going to be boring when you're done mixing it. Now, there are some tricks that you can use with sidechain compression. You can sidechain your bass guitar or your bass synthesizer to the kick drum. You know, there's things that you can do where, like, you can set like a compressor on the bass guitar that's only compressing from like 150 hertz and down, so that way that low end gets more solid and more consistent. There's a lot of little things like this, but get it right in the production, because if it's boring in the production and there's not enough movement in the production, then you're just trying to band-aid it in the mix. Everything needs to be right in the production. Otherwise, the chances of you making it great in the mix, not likely. All right, before we get on to the next question, there are links down below for every piece of gear that I use, and those links go to Sweetwater. And anytime you guys need any piece of musical gear whatsoever, you can just jump on any one of my videos and click on any one of the links in the description below. And when you do that, it costs you nothing extra, but it goes a long ways to help support this channel and help me keep making videos just like this. So thank you for using those links anytime you need to purchase anything. And thank you, Sweetwater, for sponsoring this video. Back to the questions. This next one is from Addie Haley as well. He or she, not sure, you asked like 5 questions, which is totally fine, so I'm going to pick the best 2. The next one is, what is the first thing you start with when producing a song you only have lyrics and a key for? Now, this is most of my work when I'm producing. Most artists come to me with like a chord progression, lyrics, and melodies, so they can sit down and play it and sing it on the acoustic guitar, and that's it. That's all there is. So the very first thing that I do is it the right key? They may have wrote it in this key, but what is the right key for the song? And we will play around going up and down, up a half step, up a whole step, down a half step, down a whole step. Usually we end up raising the key of the song, because the higher someone sings, the more energy they sing with, the harder they have to push in order to sing in that key. So it's pretty common, unless it's a ballad or a love song or something like that, it's pretty common for me to be like, how high can you sing this comfortably and sound really good? How high can you sing it with total control still? And it's pretty often that that's where we go with it. And then next is tempo. What is the groove? And I will always set the tempo of the song based on the vocal rhythm in the chorus. I need to make sure it's got that right bounce when we're like, whatever the lyric is, whatever the rhythm of the vocal is, that rhythm has to have the right bounce and the right groove. And so I will set the tempo based on that and that alone. And everything else in the song has to get molded to that tempo. And then the next thing is, what's the signature parts in the song? Is there an intro, turn, outro thing that has like a signature melody? Is there a riff that is repeating throughout the song? Is it like, what's the signature element of the song apart from the chorus? And then we have to create that. We have to write that riff and that, or that lick or that lead. And that is based largely around their influences and what they want and what they like. And then once that's done, then it's all about just bringing in the right session players that I can just hand over the freedom to. I can give them a tempo, a key, and a riff or a lead with the vocal, and then just let them do their thing, because this, working with all A-list session players, that's what they're great at. When you give them a framework and then let them be creative within that framework, that's what they're all really good at. So that's how I would approach that situation. Owen Korzek, hope I said your name right, asks, how do you balance making time for big studio upgrades with working for clients? That's a really great question. Because I've been in the trenches of this for a long time. And so basically what it is about to me is I have to weigh off I have to weigh the trade-offs. How much better work can I do when this is done? Do I think that this upgrade will allow me to level up? And in this case, yes. How much does this cost? How much time will it take? Which this has taken way longer than I thought it would. And do I think there will be a payoff out the other side of that with what I can charge and the type of clients I can get? If I spend the time doing this and I spend the time and money doing this, will I get paid back in the next 5 years? And to me, that's kind of the metric, is about 5 years. Will I get paid back in the next 5 years with what I can charge and the level of work that I'm doing and the success of the clients that I'm working on? And so there's no right or wrong reason here, but that's what I look at when I'm judging whether or not a big studio upgrade like this is worth it. And I think this will be worth it. I will do a video on this. There'll be a series of videos coming, whether this was worth it, because we're going to actually measure the before and the after of this. And so we'll know immediately, like within the next couple videos, you will know what the difference is sonically in here. But then on paper is one thing. What does it feel like in practice? And so a month or two down the road, I'm going to review the acoustic treatment and was it really worth it? And then we're going to put Atmos in, and then I'll do a review video of that 6 months down the road. Was it worth it putting an Atmos rig in? So I'm going to put all of this out there as transparently as I can for you guys. So hopefully it helps you make better decisions. Ari Seppi asks, how do you know you can run a business with someone and can partner on something like a studio? This is a great question. My first commercial studio, we had 4 partners. And it's a great thing because we had a cool commercial space. And all of us on our own didn't have enough gear to have a well-equipped studio. But when we all combined our gear, then we had a really well-equipped studio. The problems become, how we did it was we split the bills and the overheads like roommate, and then sessions were booked on a first-come, first-served basis. The problem is there ended up being 2 of us, myself and one other person, that pretty much had the studio booked nonstop, and the other 2 really didn't ever have much studio time available because they weren't getting the clients in. Their work was much more sporadic. And so that is where it can be difficult. Also the right person, trustworthy people that have the same goals and the same interests, and put everything in writing, absolutely everything. You need to have a partnership agreement, even if it's not drawn up by a lawyer. You need to have a partnership agreement and like an order of operations agreement. So that way there is zero confusion as to how the business is run, who pays for what, who gets priority when, what happens in the event of a split, because eventually you will part ways with your partners, and how that is to be handled, whether you just all take the gear that you bought or whether it's to pay each other out. There's a lot that goes into that. Personally, at this point in my life, I will do everything I can to avoid having actual business partners. That's not people that I work with. I want to work with lots of people, and I want to be included. I want to include lots of people in the work that I do, but I don't want any actual business partners. So do it if you can't financially pull it off on your own and you find the right person. But if you can pull it off on your own, you're better off from a business standpoint. Alex Ayers, I hope I said your name right. Do you think Atmos will end the loudness wars? Yes, I do. And this is to me, now again, I haven't really been working in the format yet. I've spent, a little bit of time in other studios, but I'm not cranking Atmos mixes out on a daily basis yet. That said, all of the people, like 90% of the people that are like, Atmos is a fad, Atmos is stupid, we only have 2 ears, blah, 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 which I need to make a video addressing all these things. These are the same people complaining that I'm crushing stuff to minus 4.5 on a master. It's the same people. And so why they're not just embracing Atmos, because the deliverable for Atmos, I believe, is minus 18. And it's not like a suggestion. When you submit a mix, they will reject it if it's over minus 18. It won't even be accepted into distribution. So yes, Atmos should end the loudness wars, and the people that have been railing against the loudness wars for the last decade, I don't understand why they're not embracing Atmos. Like, you've won. Everything that you want to happen has happened. It just didn't happen in exactly the way that you wanted it to. Yes, Atmos, as long as Atmos continues to be the standard, which I know a lot of the hype has died down, but everyone's still dropping Atmos mixes. Every single major release that comes out still has an Atmos mix released alongside of it. So it's not like a bunch of hype anymore, but I don't see it going anywhere still. So yes. Fox and Robin Recording asks, have you ever used Cubase or other DAWs? I have spent some time in Logic, and I have spent some time in Studio One. Very, very, very little time, and a lot of years ago, because I'm just Pro Tools, and I've done whole videos on that. There is no chance I'm going to pronounce your name right. Kaio Boucheron? Sorry, I'm positive that's incorrect. For the drum bus, should I go for a pair of distressors or a TubeTech LCA2B? Cool. You watch a lot of videos, and I appreciate you for watching a lot of videos. And I know that because only people who watch a lot of videos know my fondness of the TubeTech LCA2B. I do think it is one of, if not the greatest compressor ever made. I originally got mine as a Holy Grail drum bus compressor. However, it very quickly became my favorite vocal compressor for tracking vocals. I don't always use it. I don't use it a lot for mixing vocals, but every vocal that happens in my studio gets tracked through an LCA2B. So if you're going to use it for more than drum bus duties, it's amazing on bass. It's amazing on acoustic guitar. It's amazing on piano. Like, if I could have 20 of them, I would just have 20 of them and be done with it. If you can stomach the price of the TubeTech LCA2B and you're going to use it for more than drum bus stuff, get the TubeTech. Distressors are fantastic. I have one. I use it on lots of stuff. 1176s are great. I have one. I use it on lots of stuff. I have the Audioscape 260VU and the Audioscape AS 78, which is a stereo 1176. And right now, those two Audioscape units are back and forth on my drum bus, depending on the song. And the TubeTech is still absolutely amazing, but I get a little bit more character out of those other two. So if you're going to use it on more than just drum bus, get the TubeTech. It's hard to recommend at the price point if you're only going to use it on drum bus, even though it is absolutely amazing. Scotty Artifest says, what's up, dude? How are you? What's your opinion about doing your own masters? I'm wary of sending mine off, and I feel you. I've actually done a whole video about this. I'll try to remember to link it down below, but if you just search Colt Caparoon Masters, it should come up. My opinion on if you should do your own masters is based solely on the fact that you have to treat it like a completely separate discipline than mixing. Mastering is not just putting a limiter on. Mastering is not just a little bit of EQ and a limiter. Master is not just some added saturation. Mastering is a completely separate discipline from mixing. And if you're not willing to treat it like a completely separate discipline, and you're not willing to spend a decade doing it and honing your craft, then don't master your own stuff. What I did for a long time is I would have other people master my stuff, mastering engineers. Now, I wasn't happy with a lot of it. A lot of it I wasn't happy with. And so what I started doing is I started mastering, and this is 15, 17 years ago, I started mastering every single song that I worked on, that I mixed, and comparing it to the actual masters that I got back from mastering engineers. And once I felt, in a year, 2 years, maybe 3 years, eventually I felt like my masters were holding their own next to the pro masters. And at that point, I started letting the clients blind A/B them. And it took another 2 or 3 years for eventually we got to the point where the client was choosing my master 80 or 90% of the time in a blind test. And that is when I started offering my actual services as a mastering engineer, and unless a client specifically requested someone else master it, I just started mastering my own stuff. But, excuse me, but we are talking 6 years, 7 years. Like, it was a long process from the time I first started mastering stuff to the time I was like, I'm okay calling myself a mastering engineer. So if you're not willing to do that, and watch the other video on like the mindset shift, because it's really about the mindset more than anything else. If you're not willing to do that, then don't master your own stuff. And if you are willing to spend the time, and you have high-end monitors, and you have a great acoustically treated space, and you're willing to spend the time, then you can master your own stuff. But in my opinion, anything shy of that, you should just have someone else do it. Josh Raines says, the real story behind the Cappy and Coil Audio feud. Now, look, I don't want to air anyone's dirty laundry. There has been a feud between Cappy and Coil Audio happening for years. And they have pulled some wild pranks on each other. And I am honored to say that I fueled this feud pretty hard back in the early days. If you know, you know. And if you don't, yeah, just dig back through either of their social medias and you'll find some stuff. It's a great feud. Casper11206 says, could you mix film with this Atmos setup? Yes, absolutely. I don't necessarily, I'm not doing it for the purpose of mixing film. However, absolutely, this system, it'll be a 914 system. It'll be Dolby certified. This system will absolutely be at a level where I can do film, or someone can come in and QC their film Atmos mixes. Schmidt Recording, recommend a 500 series EQ to use on my mix bus. I normally use a Pultec or API plugins at the moment. This is hard because EQ on mix bus needs to be recallable. Maybe more so than anything else, I need my EQ on my mix bus to be recallable. And because of that, I don't really know. And I also, for me personally, I need 3 bands. And so for me personally, I have not found a mix bus EQ that satisfies everything that I want. There's a lot of great ones out there. The Elijah is really good sounding. I think Retro might make one. Like A Designs might make. There's a lot of good ones. I'm not trying to disparage any of them, but I have yet to find one that checks all the boxes for me personally. That would fit in a 500 rack. I would probably just advise that you look outside of a 500 series thing for your mix bus EQ, because you really need detinted pots. And for me personally, I need at least 3 bands. More is better, So, sorry, that's not a great answer, but I hope it helps. Adam Watts Music. What are you most insecure about in music making? Be honest. Winky face. What am I most insecure about? Probably a couple things. My guitar playing. I mean, I'm in Nashville. Most of the greatest guitar players the world has ever known are here in this town playing on records. And I still constantly pinch myself, and I'm like, why is anyone hiring me? Because I do get hired to just play on records halfway often as well. And I just, I'm happy to have the work. I'm honored and flattered to have the work. But I'm definitely fairly insecure about my guitar playing because of where I live and because of the other guitar players that are in this town, which are just mind-blowing. And the other thing that comes to mind actually is when I'm coaching a vocalist, when I'm singing to them how I want them to sing. I'm absolutely not a great singer. I'm really not. But I know a lot about the technique, and I know how to coach a singer, and I know how to convey to them what I want them to do. But sometimes it's weird when I've got a really great singer in here and my not singing ass is singing to them. No, do it like this. That makes me a little self-conscious, but I just try to do it because the end result is all that matters. And if we can get what they're doing, if we can get to the end result that is incredible, then I don't really care about embarrassing myself. But definitely those two things. Adam Watts also says, can I interview you? I'm a 50 times platinum producer with a new approach to music education. Sure, send me an email. I am happy to do anyone's podcast. I try to do it in person. I don't like the Zoom podcast thing. You want to fly me out or you want to fly in and interview me in person? 100%. Anyone. Don't care. I'm going to do one more from Adam Watts because this is a really good question. If you had to pick one plugin for each, EQ, compression, and Verb, and no multifunction ones. I don't really know what you would classify as multifunction, but if I could only have one EQ forever, it would be the Kirchhoff EQ. If I could only have one compressor forever and plug-in, it would either be the Arouser or it would be the FabFilter plugin, the FabFilter compressor. And if I only had one Verb forever, it would definitely be the new FabFilter Reverb. Hopefully that fits in your criteria. The David Ginley, I think is how you say it. Hopefully I got your name right. How often are you time aligning guitars and bass, etc.? If so, what is the best way to do so? The only time I'm ever time aligning guitars is when I'm doing a super tight modern metal project, like, like that kind of stuff. And I will track a DI with the dirty guitar and then group them so that way I can lock those pick strokes up to the kick and I can look at the transient on the DI guitar to nudge that around. That's the only time I'm time aligning guitars. Otherwise, play it again and play it right. On bass guitar, I will commonly nudge stuff around to lock it up with the kick drum, and when I'm doing that, I will just cut before and after the notes and nudge it, and then crossfade. That's it. I never actually phase correct drums, but I will use elastic audio, and I've done a whole video on that to nudge drums around if it's necessary. I try to avoid it, but again, genre dependent. Shane Grush says, and I had quite a few questions on bass guitar. So let's spend a minute on bass guitar because this is not the only question on bass guitar. Engineering tips for capturing great bass guitar sounds. Now this goes a little into personal preference. Personally, I don't like mic'd up bass cabs. I just never have. They're flabby, they're loose, the sub bass like 50 hertz and below is just kind of blah anytime I've ever mic'd one up. Occasionally I will take a mic'd up bass rig and high pass it 150 hertz and up and then blend it with a DI that's low pass 150 hertz and down. I've done that a bunch of times. But generally speaking, I just want a clean DI. I want the bass guitar straight into a really great DI, like a Rupert Neve Designs or like a Cappy or like something like really stout and a really good sounding DI. And then it just depends on the song. Sometimes I'm putting a amp simulator on, like some of the UAD Ampeg stuff or something, and sometimes I'm just EQing. And the only thing that I will say that I always do on the DI, sometimes I'll put an amp simulator first, sometimes I won't. And then EQ, and then compression, and then gobs of saturation, as long as it's appropriate for the song. And the reason why I put saturation after compression is because if you put saturation before compression and it's seeing the full dynamic spectrum, then the amount of saturation, the amount of distortion on the bass guitar is much more varied, as to where if you compress it first and then you put saturation after that, then a lot of times that level of distortion, the audible crispiness, is much more consistent throughout the chord progression, throughout the bass lines. And I will say the kit plugins, I think it's the BBN105. It's their model of the Neve in Blackbird Studios. It's my favorite. That's on every bass guitar. EQ and saturation. It's fantastic. Ben Adams asks, how do I get recording clients in a small market with plenty of studios? I do a lot of live sound. Network with the people you're running live sound for. That's really, especially in this market, and especially in the beginning, before you have a lot of work to show for yourself, you have to network. You have to build a friendship and a relationship with these bands and with these artists to the point where they trust you. And if you have to offer to do them for free, then do them for free. Now, I've done a whole video about this. Understand that when you do that client for free, it basically never turns them into a paying client. It's just so that way you can now have a song to build your resume to show other people to hopefully get them to pay you. But networking, it's 100% about networking at that point. Say Hey Maze says, been thinking forever that I'd love to see you work with Upchurch. That in the cards. Upchurch is basically my neighbor. He lives like not very far from me. And I've seen him a handful of times in Walmart in Ashland City, Tennessee, right down the road. And every time I've seen him, he looks at me and he's like, "What's up, dude?" And then I say, "What's up?" Like he probably knows who I am at this point, but we've never had a formal conversation. That said, yes, I would absolutely work with Upchurch. Coey by Harris asks, recording rock bands, $500 budget. What is the best outboard gear to start with your first rack with? Preamps, high-end preamps. Whether you're looking at some Cappy gear or some Rupert Neve designs or some BAE or some API stuff, whatever your flavor is, but high-end mic preamps. It makes such an enormous difference. And they can really take a mediocre sounding microphone and turn it into a great sounding microphone. So that's what I would say is drop real money on mic preamps first. Master One says, why don't you hire someone to do everything? Cheers, man. Because I'm too poor. I'm too broke. I know a lot of you guys probably think that I just put myself through this for the content, and no, it's because I can't afford it. I literally would not have been able to afford to pay someone to do all this. It's not in the cards. That said, this is probably the last time I'm doing this. I've built a lot of stuff. I've built a bunch of rooms over my career, and I'm tired. Everything hurts. My joints hurt, my muscles hurt, my head hurts, I'm tired. But no, I do it because it's out of necessity. I need this done. I want this done. I don't have the money to pay somebody. And I don't want to make that seem like, oh, poor me, I'm poor. No, it's just like having someone come in and build this, I don't know, it would have cost 15, 20, 30 grand to hire someone to do all this. It would have cost a lot of money, and it probably wouldn't look as good as the way that I'm doing it because I'm taking my time and making sure that it looks as flawless as I can make it look. So, you got to do what you got to do, man. Alexis Aricus, hopefully I'm saying your name right, asks, what doesn't work with Atmos, technically and emotionally? I'm very new to the format. I'm not formally even working in it on a daily basis. However, the only thing to me that is interesting is on certain genres, and I think we're probably figuring a way around this, and I know that I'll find a way around this, but with my limited experience in it so far, in certain genres, usually like heavy rock and heavy metal, part of the energy of the song relies on smashing it. Lots of limiting on the mix bus, lots of compression on the mix bus. A lot of the aggression comes from saturation and limiting on the mix bus. And in Atmos, you don't really have that. So what will need to get modified is we'll continue to do more of that on an individual track basis rather than on a bus basis. And there'll be some push and pull figuring that out and making it sound really good over the next handful of years with everybody. But to me, that's the only thing that I can come up with, because in my opinion, as long as the mix is good, there are a lot of bad Atmos mixes out there. As long as the mix is good, everything is better. There are more dynamics, there are more transients, there's more emotion because there's more space. Instead of cramming 30 instruments in a spectrum like this, you're letting instruments be in their own glory all around you. And because of that, every piece of music has so much more emotional impact, in my opinion. Omer Shear says, does working from the home studio get affected by dad duties? Yeah, it does. It's better because here, the entire second level of our house is all my workspace The whole second level is my studio. So it's better because I have a door separating, like at the bottom of the stairs, there's a door separating the house from the studio side. But it still hangs over your head, you know? The dishes need done, laundry needs done. You know, if the wife is home, I'm tempted to just pop down there and hang out with her rather than work. You know, you just have to stay more focused. But for me personally, I'll take that trade-off because like we were driving into Nashville 2 days ago, and I was just like, the drivers and the traffic was so infuriating. I'm like, I just can't imagine doing this every day and giving up an extra hour and a half to 2 hours of my life every single day. Or like, you know, it's all the time we'll put the kid to bed and I'm like, hey, I need to go print a couple stems, and I'll just pop up here and do an hour's worth of work. And then I'm in my like slippers and stuff, like I'm ready for bed. And so the trade-off is huge. But there are pros and cons to both for sure. What kind of diffuser are you going to install? It's a Vicoustic diffuser. Well, it's off camera, I guess. It's a huge, huge diffuser, and I'm really pumped about it. Transylvania Stud asks, the smallest room you can get away with for a control mix room. I did it in an apartment bedroom. Charted Billboard Top 40 mixing in an apartment bedroom. That was like 10 foot by 12 foot. It's more about knowing your room, having good monitors, and having it as well treated as you can. Ceiling clouds. Put a ceiling cloud in. Like, so many people get panels that go around the room, and that's a great start. Ceiling cloud. Like, get a ceiling cloud in there. That makes the biggest difference, in my opinion. Silas Brown. Also, when are we going to start a Cooking with Colt channel? We need tutorials. Follow me on Instagram. I don't really do any actual, like, recipes, but I do a lot of cooking. Keith Fontano, hopefully I said your name right. Best platform for client acquisition. SoundBetter, Fiverr, Instagram, Craigslist, etc. Word of mouth and face-to-face relationships. Go have coffee with absolutely every artist who will go have coffee with you, with every band who will go have coffee with you. Go to their shows. Invite them over. Like, personal relationships are by far the best way, because the type of clients, I'm not going to say that you can't make a good living doing stuff on Fiverr, because you can, and there are people who do, but the type of clients you're going to get on that platform are usually not the clients that are going to propel your career to the next level. So do that as filler stuff. Fill in the empty spots in your schedule with that stuff. That's fine. But personal relationships. Go find the people that you want to work with and then convince them to work with you. MG Pro Atlanta. You've been following me on Instagram forever. I'm sorry that I don't know how to pronounce your name. Do you feel your space is big enough, or do you wish you'd built bigger? 45-degree walls helped. Man, I always want bigger. This space is huge. This space is like 22 foot by 24 foot. But yeah, I mean, bigger is always better. The hard thing though is the bigger the space, the exponential the cost of treating it and setting it up right. So yes, more space is always better, but the investment gets exponentially more expensive the bigger the space. So for that reason, I'm fine here. What I do wish I had is another like storage room, like an additional like 10 foot by 10 foot or 10 foot by 15 foot room to just store things, because right now I have basically no storage here. Paul Rom asks, which fabric wall system are you using? All the best from Germany. Thank you for watching from Germany. It is fabric-wall.com. That's who I got the track from, and the fabric is from Guilford of Maine, and it is from their Anchorage collection. Sound Shack NL asks, how much is it costing in total to redo the entire room for Atmos? It's a great question. I don't actually know the total yet, but it's probably something I will discuss in a future video. Justin Frazier, I believe that is how you say your name, JSTNFRZR, says, what are some things that you've done to a track without the artist ever knowing? Generally speaking, I don't let the artist stay in the room when I'm editing. I don't want them to know what I'm doing. I don't want them to overthink it. I don't want them to hear the changes that I'm making. I don't want them to hear me going through different takes and then pitch correcting this take and then being like, nah, that's not good enough. Let's try this take. I don't want them to hear any of that. What I want them to do is be wowed with the end result when I finally am happy with it and send it to them. So, nearly every artist. And it always comes down to which parts of the take I'm choosing, pocketing the take. Every singer sings early. Like just about 90% of the singers that I track, I could select the entire vocal and then nudge it back in time, forward in time, 10 milliseconds, 20 milliseconds, and nearly every singer will feel better doing that because every singer sings early. Like they all do it, and some of them way more than others. I have a handful of clients where I'm talking like 30, 40 milliseconds that I will nudge their whole vocal to pocket them. So yeah, I do a lot. Jeremy from Recording Studio Loser went hard in the questions. I love him, and so we're gonna answer a handful from him. What is one everyday studio task that is easy, but it kills your soul to do every day? Bouncing stems, I absolutely despise it, and cleaning. Don't care for either of them. He basically asks what's my desert island microphone? I would, if I had to choose a single microphone right now, I could never use any other microphone, I'd have to say the Lawton Audio Atlantis, because it's so versatile and it sounds good on everything. I would be happy only using that microphone forever if I had to choose one microphone. And he says you get as many of that mic as you want. Then he says boxers or briefs. Boxer briefs. Didn't see that one coming, did you? And then Chico June Music, hopefully I said your name right. If you only had one, a TLM 67 versus an LA 387N mode, Lawton Audio 387, for Vokes and guitars. I really like the TLM 67. I really enjoy it. I think the Lawton Audio. I think I would choose that. All right, this video has gone on long enough. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell next to the subscribe tab so you get notified when I upload new videos. Don't forget links in the description below. I appreciate you guys being here. Thank you for asking all your questions. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.